Hey, Stoney here. I'm here with Clint Leewood, and this is Mechabellum Tournament. This is the mini tournament Americas. At the bottom here, we have Steel saying, I think he is 2000 plus MMR. I'm not quite sure his ranking. I think it's in the top 10 for sure. Possibly in the top 5. Not too sure. He's playing as an aerial specialist up against Doxson, playing as a elite specialist. Both of these are players of extremely high caliber, so we should be expecting some very intense game. Starting on round 1, we got Tarantulas here at the bottom up against Sledgehammers and the added Marksman. How do you feel about this, Clint?
Yeah, I think the elite spec is generally favored in the early rounds, right? And I think level 2 marksmen make mincemeat of a tarantula. It's really going to kind of come down to this idea of, more, I think kind of notably in this round that Steel Saint elected not for a double deployment and instead gets an early Phoenix. I think that is very interesting and something that I've been seeing some people play around with on the ladder. How do you feel about that sort of early draft?
It's a bit of a mind read. I think usually when you're up against or when you're playing a elite specialist, possibly the strongest unit you can pick in round 1 is level 2 crawlers. So if Steel Sen was expecting that, he'll say, okay, you can do level 2 crawlers. I probably won't kill you, but my Phoenix will win me the round. So I think that's the reason why he did that. But it's a bit unfortunate, and it's not unexpected to go with Marksman, especially against Tarantula.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even think that would be that's not even like a thought that it would that has occurred to me, that sort of like read. But it makes sense, right? Like early Phoenixes with levels can really put in a lot of work and do a lot of heavy lifting. And if there's a bunch of level 2 crawlers on the field, that's quite a bit of an experience for them to slurp up. But I mean, here we are with round 2 coming in, and it looked like a skip from both players, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
skip from both, and then Doxson developing level 2 crawlers. So cool stuff.
Yeah,
A
I
third
am liking
tarantula coming up
Doxson's
for Steel
board.
Saint too.
Yeah, for
Sorry,
sure.
go ahead, guys.
Sorry, cut you off there, but I was gonna
No,
say
you're
that
good. You're good.
I am liking Doxson's board. I think it's going somewhere while protecting all the ways that Steelson can get him. These 2 early marksmen, they're covering multiple angles. They're dealing with the tarantulas, they're dealing with the phoenixes, and all you had to spend was 300 supplies. So a very efficient use of your resources.
I completely agree. So have you played around with Phoenix Tarantula before? And if so, what's your impressions of it?
I think it depends on what the situation is like on the board, right? Right now, I don't think the tarantula is doing enough to tank all the damage. Maybe, maybe just missing one more shot. Tarantulas do get outscaled after round 4, and you might start to see the board kind of warping from Tarantula Phoenix to Tarantula Fortress Phoenix. Because Tarantula, at some point, they're just not going to be tanky enough. And you can't rely on them for that particular purpose.
Whoa.
Rhino gets picked for Steel Saint, and a 4 gets picked for Doxson. Interesting.
Yeah. So I've been playing around with this Phoenix Tarantula comp, and the bane of my existence is them getting double fort or a fort for unit drop, because it turns out Fortress is like 3 or 4 shot tarantulas, and with AA you also have this wonderful ability of being able to kill the phoenixes at the same time. But we see the triple rhino drop that I mentioned last game coming into play here, which is very scary and a lot of tempo. And the kind of the question becomes now, right, for Steel Saint into Doxson is, with the fort will beat the rhino head to head, but is there too much pressure from so many different vectors at this point with the 3 rhinos that does it matter there's a fortress on the field?
Possibly not. I think right now the Dachshund's. I was gonna say Dachshund was gonna be struggling a little bit with chaff clear, but it seems like the chaff is clear. The Rhino themselves, they kind of serve as just a huge distraction, as you can see right here. Just a huge distraction. Steel Sen's endgame, at least for these rounds, is let's get the marksman, and once they get the marksman, he wins by default by having the phoenixes. And it seems to be working. Right now, Dachshund has a rate of fire problem. Like, these marksmen right now are not doing enough or not firing enough before Steel Sen's army clash into it. So that's a bit of a problem. There is an easy way to fix that, right? It's just to add more sledgehammers. They serve as chaff clear, they fire pretty good, and they also tank pretty good. You can also go heavier into fortresses, but your fortress will need support in the form of arc lights. But I think the sledgehammer route might be a bit more flexible.
Yeah, and I think generally, right, like I think sledgehammers do pretty okay into rhinos. Not in the sense that, like, they kill them, but in the sense that they can really delay them and allow the marksman to do the job in the back, right? It just turns out that those crawlers that were leading along with the rhino, there was just a little too many for them for the left side to properly clear the rhino. So with these sledgehammers now set up, I think that could be fixed. Let's see though. But yeah, the middle rhino goes down, the right side rhino's dead, and it looks like this left might just barely go down. Yeah. Okay, nice. This looks really good for Dachshund. A nice little tempo swing back in his favor. Steel Saint spent a lot of money on levels that round, and that experience gets funneled right back into the elite spec, which is great.
Speed spec's probably gonna get picked by Steel Saint because that seems to be the theme for his army here. And Dachshund being the defender, taking senior defense is not unexpected. Wasp Bomb could be good. Could be good for both sides, actually.
I think it'd be a little tough to pilot, but I agree. But both players mirror each other with senior defense spec, which I find to be interesting. Yeah,
I thought for sure that was Steel Saint was going to take the speed, but that's interesting.
How do you value that card, senior defense specialist?
I think with senior defense, the more single model high HP units you have on your board, the more effective this is going to be. So that when you're looking at it that way, it makes a lot of sense because Steel Saint is going with tarantulas, right, which got a lot of HP. It's got Rhino, which got a lot of HP, and then everything else is just chap. Whereas for Dachshund, these sledgehammers aren't getting nearly as much HP boost as these tarantulas from that card. So that card is definitely benefiting Steel Saint more than it does Dachshund.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wonder if Dachshund ended up grabbing it because he felt like he would fall behind if he didn't. This is something that I would really love to have him, to ask him a question about. Because I feel like there's a rule of thumb both players have here that maybe I don't know about or I'm not aware about. And, it's these little rules of thumb in a game of rock, paper, scissors, such as Mechabellum, where, that makes all the difference sometimes. I can win you games, win you rounds, reset tempo.
So right now, this is all I was talking about. You get rid of the marksman, then you win by default. It doesn't matter if you get a high-level forts here. Dachshund, because he's already got the forts, there's no reason for him to stop adding forts, and forts really take a lot of advantage from that card. Speed is offered again. And surprisingly, it is Dachshund that took the speed, not Steel Saint. Maybe he will. Mustang production is pretty good.
Mustang production is very good. I completely agree. Steel Saint, not Steel Saint. Dachshund going speed spec is interesting because I thought he was kind of playing the come and get me comp, but it looks like with the storm colors being added on by Steel Saint that maybe that dynamic has changed a little bit.
Exactly. Speed spec. So here's one way that you can work around the Stormcallers. The speed spec or temp speed allows your units to have a higher chance of dodging that initial volley or even subsequent volley once they finish the fight and just continue to move on. But right now, I'm still very confused with Dockson's strategy. So he took speed spec and then he proceeded to add range. Okay, so that's interesting. Normally, when you take speed spec, you don't really care about range as much because your unit's just going to arrive a lot sooner. But he did spend the time on range instead of going mech rage. Yeah.
So you think Mech Rage would have been a better pickup here then?
Mech rage would work better with speed spec.
I agree, right? I think it's a twofold thing, right? One, it helps dodge the Stormcaller volleys if when the sledgehammers are moving, but also I think Dockson's chaff clear is still like kind of subpar.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of reducing the interval attack rate of the sledgehammers means that their little itsy bitsy splash damage can do more chaff clearing. So yeah, no, I think Mech Rage would have been the better call. But you can kind of see right now what's happening, right? These forts are walking forward. They're eating all the Phoenix shots and all the Stormcaller shots and dying pretty quick. And speaking of dying pretty quick, Dockson's getting low fast.
Yeah.
Right, unit drop.
Typhoon just to help with the chaff clear. Right now, the sledgehammers are transforming their role from just basic chaff clear into a bit of a carry units. I wouldn't be surprised if Dawson takes Mech Rage now with range. They actually are pretty good. You yourself have played many fantastic games with sledgehammers with just those two techs, and we're into the late game, so they can certainly be a carry unit.
Oh yeah.
The sandworms can be problematic, but we have forts on the ground and they do punch them to death as soon as they get close. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm more worried about these rhinos. This one's already level 3. He did get rid of the other one. What Doxon needs right now is firepower.
And speaking of firepower, launcher overload is clicked on the fortresses. How cool is that? Not what I was anticipating, right? My sort of thought process is that with range being teched on the Phoenixes, my head was leaning into this idea of clicking AA. Like I thought the turn was going to be like lone, temp range, mech rage, AA fort. You know what I mean? But that's just not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Spider Mine's being picked up, though.
Spider Mine being picked up. More reason to get Mech Rage, because tanks without Mech Rage aren't actually that good against Spider Mines.
Oh, no.
But it looks like Dawson could get this one, because with Launcher Overload, just look at this. Just going in and go pew pew. But instead of tiny lasers, it's going to be big cannons from a fort. Alright, let's get tower. Nice.
Okay, that's great timing.
Yeah.
Another good timing here. I wonder if the launcher overload was a bit of a read on the worms.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessary because the force do out-level the worms. But sure. I think, yeah, like and also launcher overload works better with the speed spec.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I didn't honestly even consider that. Something that I've also toyed around a little bit with is Tarantula Phoenix Worm. I think it has some wheels to it. And I think Steel Saint's kind of putting it together himself. I don't know if this was... Oh, no, he's selling off the worm. Never mind. Ignore me. I was gonna say, I feel like with the spider mines from the tarantulas and the large health pools from the worms, you can kind of take the friendly fire and not notice it so much. Mm-hmm. But it looks like that was just some beef that Steel Saint was using as a stopgap for a little bit here.
Mm-hmm. Right now, Steel Saint has a bit of a problem with these force that continues to get leveled. there is a lot of HP on Doc's inside. I know earlier I said, whenever you take the senior defense card, which side has the more single high HP units will get benefit more. But right now, Dachshund is the one with that because of the additional Typhoons with a high level force. The middle force has 264,000 HP. Right now, the only units that can really make a dent in that fort is probably these level 4 Phoenixes, and even then, these Phoenixes requires 10 shots on the fort to bring it down.
Is fire gonna be good enough? The old fire oil combo. Both side forts are down, but the middle one is just crushing through. Oh, this looks pretty bad for Dachshund, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think Dachshund's dead.
Yeah, I think Dachshund's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dachshund did mention that Steel Sane. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say Dachshund has mentioned Steel Sane as a bit of his nemesis in the past, so, another one for Steel Sane.
Yeah, Dachshund's got a good board. I'm not entirely convinced that the tech swap into Typhoons instead of just tacking up your sledgehammers with even more tech, like the mech rage on the sledgehammers, was the right choice. Sure, you get the drop for the Typhoons, but you don't have to go this hard into it. So not too sure. I think what Dachshund was really using these Typhoons for is as an insurance policy against these Phoenixes.
Yeah, I think so as well. I feel like the mech rage I would have much rather been picked up on the sledgehammers as well over the Typhoons. I think the Typhoons do enough on their own. And I would have liked my my sledgehammers, which 2-shot or 1-shot in this case, level 1 Stormcallers with one little cannon shot. So once a sledgehammer gets on a level 2 sledgehammer gets on a level 1 Stormcaller, it swings pretty heavily in the sledgehammer's favor.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing that the dog never took was the anti-air barrage. I think that could have swung the battle a little bit. These are level 4, so they're a little tanky.
That's a lot of damage, though, coming out from them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Hard to say. Well, I hope you enjoyed this game, and I will see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics. Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress. The battlefield's alive with swarms.